Have you ever wondered how a man born in a log cabin in Kentucky rose to become one of the most impactful presidents in American history? In the early hours of February 12, 1809, in a small one-room log cabin, a boy named Abraham Lincoln took his first breath. This humble cabin, nestled in the rugged landscape of Kentucky, was a far cry from the grandeur of the White House, but it was here that our story begins. Young Lincoln's surroundings were primitive, and his family was poor. His parents, Thomas and Nancy Lincoln, were simple, hard-working folk, carving out a living from the unforgiving frontier land. The family moved to Indiana when Lincoln was just 7 years old, trading the rolling hills of Kentucky for the dark, dense woodlands of the Hoosier State. Life on the frontier was challenging, to say the least. The Lincolns lived in a rough log cabin, and young Abraham spent his days helping his father clear land and farm. But even in these early years, the spark of something greater flickered within him. Despite the lack of formal education, Lincoln had an insatiable thirst for knowledge. He would walk miles to borrow a book, reading by the light of the fire after a long day's work. He taught himself, learning from the books he could get his hands on, absorbing their wisdom like a sponge. His love for reading and his tenacious self-education became the bedrock of his intellectual development, setting him apart from many of his contemporaries. As Lincoln grew older, his ambitions took him beyond the confines of the frontier. He moved to Illinois and began his career as a lawyer. His sharp intellect, coupled with his innate sense of fairness and justice, made him a formidable force in the courtroom. Lincoln also found himself drawn to politics, becoming a leader in the Whig Party and later, a U.S. congressman. Despite his humble beginnings, Lincoln's determination and self-education set him on a path that would change the course of American history. How does a lawyer from Kentucky become a national leader? Well, for Abraham Lincoln, it was a journey of dedication, resilience, and unwavering principles. Born into poverty, Lincoln's path to politics was far from conventional. He was self-educated, a testament to his indomitable spirit and unquenchable thirst for knowledge. He began his political career as an Illinois state legislator, where he proved his mettle as a capable and committed public servant. But it was his tenure as a U.S. congressman from Illinois that truly put him on the political map. However, Lincoln wasn't one to rest on his laurels. After serving his term, he returned to his law practice in Springfield, Illinois. But as they say, once in politics, always in politics. The Kansas-Nebraska Act of 1854, which opened the territories to slavery, stirred the dormant political giant in Lincoln. He was not one to stand by while principles he held dear were trampled upon. So, he decided to re-enter the political fray. It was during this period that the Republican Party was taking shape, and Lincoln, with his charismatic leadership and resolute anti-slavery stance, soon became one of its leading figures. He gained national prominence during the 1858 Senate campaign debates against Stephen A. Douglas. Though he lost the election, his eloquent defense of freedom and equality resonated with the public, making him a beloved figure across the nation. When Lincoln ran for president in 1860, he swept the North, securing a decisive victory. His election was a testament to his political acumen, his unwavering principles, and his ability to connect with the common man. But it also marked the beginning of a tumultuous period in American history, as the South viewed his election as a threat to slavery, leading to secession and the onset of the Civil War. Lincoln's political journey was not without challenges, but his resilience and beliefs propelled him to the national stage. His story serves as a shining example of how an individual, armed with conviction and courage, can rise above circumstances and make a difference. What would you do if your election as president sparked a national crisis? That's the daunting reality Abraham Lincoln faced when he took office as the 16th president of the United States. Lincoln's election in 1860 sparked a wave of secession in the South. The Southern states, seeing his election as a threat to their institution of slavery, began to break away from the Union. This led to the formation of the Confederate States of America, a coalition of Southern states bent on preserving their way of life. The newly formed Confederacy wasted no time in asserting themselves, seizing federal military bases in the South. A little over a month into Lincoln's presidency, Confederate forces launched an attack on Fort Sumter, a U.S. fort in South Carolina, marking the beginning of the American Civil War. The Civil War was a test of Lincoln's leadership. The nation was divided, and Lincoln had to navigate a contentious array of factions. His allies, the War Democrats and the Radical Republicans, demanded harsh treatment of the Southern Confederates. Anti-war Democrats known as Copperheads despised Lincoln, and some pro-Confederate elements even plotted his assassination. Despite these challenges, Lincoln managed these factions, carefully distributing political patronage and appealing to the American people. Lincoln also closely supervised the war effort, including the selection of generals and the implementation of a naval blockade of the South's trade. He suspended habeas corpus in Maryland and elsewhere, and diffused the Trent Affair, averting British intervention. His leadership was not just strategic but transformative, as he used the war as an opportunity to reshape the nation's moral fabric. In 1863, Lincoln issued the Emancipation Proclamation. This historic document declared the slaves in Confederate-held territories to be free. It also directed the Army and Navy to recognize and maintain the freedom of these individuals, and to receive them into the armed service of the United States. This was a bold move designed to weaken the Confederacy and provide the Union with additional manpower. But it had far-reaching implications. It set the stage for the abolition of slavery across the entire nation. Lincoln didn't stop there. He applied pressure on border states to outlaw slavery and promoted the 13th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution, which abolished slavery except as a punishment for a crime. Lincoln's commitment to ending slavery was unwavering. His efforts were not just about winning the war but about securing a future for the nation where all men could be free. In the face of tremendous adversity, Lincoln showed unwavering leadership, successfully navigating the nation through one of its darkest periods. His presidency was marked by the Civil War, but his legacy was shaped by his commitment to justice, his strategic leadership, and his indomitable resolve. Lincoln's presidency was not just about leading a nation through war, but about transforming a nation at war. His leadership during the Civil War remains a testament to his determination, his integrity, and his vision for a united and free America. Can you imagine the shock and grief the nation felt when their leader was suddenly taken from them? In the spring of 1865, just 5 days after the Confederate surrender at Appomattox, President Abraham Lincoln decided to enjoy a play at Ford's Theater in Washington, D.C. Little did he know, it would be his last. As the play progressed, a Confederate sympathizer named John Wilkes Booth stealthily entered Lincoln's box and fired a single, fatal shot. The bullet struck Lincoln and plunged the nation into mourning. A beacon of hope and unity, Lincoln had led the country through the Civil War, and his sudden demise sent waves of shock and sorrow across the nation. The man who had preserved the Union, abolished slavery and championed freedom, was no more. The tragic event marked an abrupt end to Lincoln's life and presidency. In an instant, the nation lost a leader who had guided it through its most tumultuous times. How does a president from the 19th century continue to influence modern America? That's a question we often ponder when we consider the legacy of Abraham Lincoln. To say his impact was profound would be an understatement. In fact, his influence is so deeply woven into the tapestry of American history that it continues to shape our nation's path even today. Lincoln's impact on slavery, for instance, was monumental. His Emancipation Proclamation and the 13th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution marked a seismic shift, altering the course of American history by abolishing the institution of slavery. His actions laid the groundwork for civil rights movements that would follow, ensuring that freedom, equality, and justice remained central tenets of American society. But his influence didn't stop there. Lincoln also played a pivotal role in expanding the power of the federal government. He deftly navigated the treacherous waters of civil war, holding the nation together when it threatened to fracture. He showed us that a strong federal government could be a force for unity and progress, a lesson that still resonates in our modern political landscape. And let's not forget his role in modernizing the U.S. economy. Lincoln understood the importance of progress and innovation. He championed the development of the Transcontinental Railroad, the Homestead Act, and the Morrill Act, all of which contributed to the expansion and modernization of America's economy. Even today, as we strive for economic growth and stability, we do so in the shadow of Lincoln's vision. Abraham Lincoln's status as a national hero is well-deserved. His leadership, his courage, and his unwavering commitment to the ideals of liberty and justice make him a figure of inspiration for all Americans. He reminds us that great leaders are those who rise to the occasion, who stand firm in the face of adversity, and who never lose sight of the greater good. From his humble beginnings to his untimely death, Lincoln's life and legacy continue to shape the fabric of America. His story is a testament to the power of determination, resilience and belief in a cause greater than oneself.